Thank you very much, everyone. This is our sixth session on the Liberating Cinema Film Series 2022. And I'm very honored and grateful that we have Philipp Zengel here with us here from the DEFA Stiftung in Berlin, who will speak to us today about DEFA's Indianerfilme, this wonderful chapter of East German Westerns, and the great star that was Gojko Mitić as the Native American chief in these films. Philipp, good evening.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us and for taking your time. I know it's a bit late, perhaps also, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If we could hear from you and what you prepared, I'm really grateful again. And then perhaps I'll have one or two questions at the end. But it's really just, it would be great to hear from you and about these films and your own work and the work of DEFA.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Philipp Zengel. My interest in DEFA, the state-owned film company of the GDR, and its films began in 2014, so now 8 years ago, with an internship at the DEFA Foundation in Berlin. That was my starting point. Since then, I've been working for the foundation in various fields. Since I finished my studies in 2018. I'm responsible for public relations here. And during the last years, I learned much about the GDR and its film production, a country I never lived in and that doesn't exist anymore, and also a film stock from which I didn't see a single film in its time of creation. So the film stocks of the GDR offers new discoveries for me almost every day, and it's a very interesting field of work. So some words about the DEFA. The DEFA disappeared as a result of German reunification. In 1992, the last films were produced by the DEFA, and after that it was unclear what should happen with this film heritage, which includes 700 feature films, 450 fictional shorts, 950 animated films, 2,000 documentaries, and also 6,700 German language dubs of foreign films. So it's a huge heritage, and the DEFA Foundation holds the rights of all these productions nowadays. The foundation was founded in 1998, and the goal of the foundation is to preserve these films for future generations and make them accessible as a source of research and discoveries. Because all of the DEFA productions were shot on film material, our main challenge is to transfer all these films into a new digital format for the audience. And the digitization of old film material is a very complex and expensive process and involves many steps and takes several months per film. So since 2012, we have been able to bring more than 600 feature films, documentaries, and also animated films into the digital age. And The Son of the Great Beer is one of them. It was one of our first digitization projects from 2012-2013. And I'm glad that I can tell you some facts about the movie and its background now. The Son of the Great Beer is set at the time of the last great freedom struggle of the Lakota tribes against the white conquerors, and tries to correctly reflect the historical events. In 1868, the Lakota were granted by treaty the territory around what are now the US states of North and South Dakota, and also some parts of Montana. But after gold was discovered in the mountains 6 years later, the treaties lost their validity, and the indigenous people were supposed to leave the area by the end of January 1886, but individual tribes resisted, and the US government began to evict the Native Americans by force. This story became the first Western movie of the DEFA in 1965. In the late 1950s, the DEFA made a first try to make a historical feature film about events in the Wild West, but the plan failed because the script wasn't considered good enough. And in 1962, the movies of the Apache chief Winnetou, who was portrayed by the French actor Pierre Brice, and his blood brother Old Shatterhand, who was portrayed by the Hollywood actor Lex Barker, were huge box office hits in the cinemas of West Germany. And these stories are based on the books by the author Karl May. And the first of these films, The Treasure in Silver Lake, already reached an audience of millions in Western Germany. And in the GDR, comparable cinema successes were needed. In the GDR, the books of the author Karl May and also the movies weren't welcome at the time. And if the citizens of the GDR wanted to see these movies, they had to travel to Czechoslovakia or Hungary to see it, because it wasn't able to watch them in the GDR cinemas. But the young people in the GDR wanted to experience Wild West adventures on the big screen as well. And because of this, efforts were made to enrich a new genre in the DEFA repertoire. And they began to search for a filmable book. And the choice fell on the popular youth book, The Sons of the Great Beer, by the author and also historian Lieselotte Welskopf-Henrich, a very difficult name, also for Germans. Welskopf-Henrich also co-wrote the screenplay of The Son of the Great Beer, and she was very interested in the culture of the indigenous people of North America, and it was very important for her to tell more than an adventurous story. And in a production assessment, she said in December 1964, I have a quote, she said, we saw the possibility of creating a film that differs from unrealistic cliché of those commercial Western films that show the indigenous people only as anonymous masses. So that's the main claim, no? The indigenous people were to be portrayed neither as savage villains nor as infallible heroes. And the claim was to show the Native Americans in their everyday lives, to provide insight into their way of life, and to give a new perspective on US history. A unique selling point was found that set the DEFA Native American films apart from other films within the Western genre. Sometimes the films are also referred internationally as Eastern, so not Western, Eastern. The Sons of the Great Beer was filmed in 1965, mostly in what is now known as Bosnia-Herzegovina, also some scenes in Montenegro and in the German Elbe sandstone mountains. The film premiered in February 1966. And it was a huge box office hit for the DEFA. More than 5 million people watched the film in the first year. And the success was very important for the company because the time of the mid-60s wasn't easy for the studio. The Son of the Great Beer was released in a year in which almost the entire annual production of the DEFA was banned after the so-called 11th conference of the Central Committee of the Socialist Unity Party of the GDR. And it may be questioned if the Sons of the Great Beer would have been produced a year later when culture policy changed in the GDR, because until then Western movies were considered as a bourgeois film genre, which glorifies cowboy characters portrayed by actors like John Wayne, and also dealt with the history of the class enemy, the US. So yeah, maybe a year later, when time changed, it wouldn't be possible. But compared to the banned GDR contemporary films of 1965, 1966, however, the Sons of the Great Beer seemed comparatively unobjectionable from a cultural, political perspective. Yeah, so it's also in this way, very interesting movie in this political, cultural background. I want to tell you also something about the main actor, because for many people, the success of the GDR Western movies is strongly connected to the main actor, Gojko Mitić, who was engaged for the leading role of Toka Ito in The Sons of Great Beer. Mitić was born in 1940 in Serbia, Yugoslavia then. So he was round about 25 when he made this movie. He was a sports student without professional acting training, and he previously played smaller roles in some West German Karl May movies, Winnetou films. And when a short time later, the DEFA, in person of the production manager Horst Mahrlich, offered Mitić the role of Toka Ito, it was initially just another film for him. And the success of the movie wasn't expected by him. He became an idol for millions of children and young people in the GDR and also in many other East European states. And with The Son of the Great Beer, his huge career started, especially in Germany. He played various historical and fictional indigenous characters in a total of 12 DEFA movies until 1982. And he was also seen in a science fiction movie and as a pirate in another movie. But for the audience, he was always a Native American. In the 1990s and early 2000, he played each summer the Winnetou in a huge open-air theater in northern Germany, and is still an idol for thousands of people here. And yeah, from also for a new generation of people. maybe this is also interesting for you. Many people didn't believe in the success of Westerns from the GDR. Also, the filmmakers from the DEFA, because for the first film it was very difficult to find a director. It was much more easier to find the main actor, the main star, than the director. So no one of the DEFA directors wanted to shoot the film, want to make it. Many of them wanted to make more sophisticated films. And as a result, the Czechoslovak filmmaker Josef Mach was hired as a guest director. And but after the great commercial success of The Sons of the Great Beer, the search for a director for the following films of Westerns from the DEFA was much easier. And there were two directors, Gottfried Kolditz and Konrad Petzold. Both of them made four Western movies, and it was very popular, and the budget raised very much for the following movies, and it was an unexpected success. And so the directors looked up for an audience, for a huge audience, and they wanted that their films were shown, and with the more sophisticated and all films, and also the films which are playing in the GDR, some other directors made very bad experiences, so their films were forbidden. So it wasn't so bad to make in historical films in this time. And yeah, so it was more popular, and for more than a decade. And every huge hit has an end. So 1982 is the year of the last Western movie. And yeah, maybe that's it at this point. You have some questions maybe for me.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to ask you first, perhaps you touched on the cultural reception of these films. I wonder if I can share one aspect. I was always fascinated by the fact, and this I know also from personal kind of experience and from my own, these films were, for instance, we had spoken a little bit about this before. These films were very interesting, as you said, for the portrayal they gave of, U.S. American history and the perspective of the Native Americans, and for offering this perspective. And what I found quite interesting in the way that the films were shown in Yugoslavia, they were also a huge success in Yugoslavia. And Winnetou was also quite a big success in Yugoslavia. And of course, American Westerns, other Westerns. So what I find interesting is that in Yugoslavia, people grew up on watching both the kind of Westerns from the US and from West Germany, but also from East Germany and also from other Czechoslovakia, from other countries. So they kind of had this interesting, if for today, strange perspective where they would have both perspectives, which I don't think when you realize perhaps people in other countries didn't have. So my question really is, what's the kind of perspective on these films in terms of their cultural reception? What do you think is interesting about them, obviously from your own knowledge and your work on this period? And then also you mentioned, the second part of that question is you mentioned that people are also inspired by these films today and new generations see them. So that's the second part of it. How does that fit into it as well? Those two parts.
Yeah. I know that Gojko Mitić watched the films with John Wayne when he was a child. So I made a talk with him, and he said that he was very inspired by this and the cowboys. And at this time, it wasn't very popular to be an indigenous. So the children wanted to be a cowboy. And some years later, when he was grown up and he learned more about the culture of the Native Americans, he changed his opinion, and it was more popular for him to be an indigenous, to play an indigenous person, and he wanted to show this culture in all of its different parts. And yeah, I feel that this is also a point for many others in different countries who are watching these movies, that you learn something about a culture, about cultures of the Native Americans. They don't exist anymore, so you can identify with them and learn something. And this is maybe the most important part about these films and why the people love it, because they have a big sympathy with them, so they can identify and learn something about it. And that's for me the point why it's such a huge success.
Do you think that's part of the reason also why today new generations identify with the films?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe, yeah, we will see how popular these films will be in the future, because there are some points which are not so up to date, especially language parts. They are using words like, in German it's Indianer, and this is not so popular to use anymore. And also the actors were painted red in some parts, and it's also not so popular anymore. And yeah, it could be that these films were not shown anymore in the TV or so much. So maybe they need a disclaimer in the future, and maybe this will change the success for these films also. It could be. We will see.
Yes, well, absolutely. I think that that's an aspect, though, I guess you're saying also of kind of the way these films are circulated, the way people, the way they're actually able to be put out. But I mean, that would be interesting, because I think then you would have to censor a lot of Westerns, right? Because in terms of what they portray. So
yeah. Yeah, there are historical documents. You have to know that they were produced in the 1960s in the best intention. Yeah, we will see.
of course, I do remember there's a great film, Hang On Doggy by Ane Kapcic, Yugoslav films by the Slovenian director from the 70s. And there is a scene in which you said, you know, the children who do they want to be, and it's actually they're all playing Native Americans. So it's very interesting the way this kind of cultural perception works, particularly transnationally. But I think that perhaps my second question is, do you think what was the reason for this kind of Westerns? You talked about them going into the 70s and 80s. How did they develop? I mean, why did they phase out in a way? Why did they stop if they were so popular?
Yeah, every hype has an end. The books, the good books are gone. So they have made the films with the best books first, and then they needed more and more, because the audience wanted it, and they needed more films every year, one new film every year. So then you have bad script and you need a film, and then it doesn't have the same success anymore when the script is not good. So I feel that the best stories are told in the first films, and then they need more stuff, but yeah, in the end, yeah, it was over. Yeah.
Perfect. And I think this is a good point where I should ask you also, because you do incredible work in terms of discovering and rediscovering and putting out this heritage to new generations. So I guess my question is, you talked about the kind of a great work you're doing particularly since 2012 on digitizing this heritage. How much of the films, because they look amazing. I mean, I'm just interested in terms of The Sounds of Great Bear, other Westerns, but also other East German films. How much of them are actually do you do like restoration, analog, or whether digital? How much was done, or how much do you do, and how much of it is digitization and the films are in great prints already? So this is just an interesting kind of in terms of the preservation context and perhaps about your own restoration work and digitization.
I don't know if I get the point, but we have made 600 films since 2012, and we have made all of the Western movies, all the 12 ones. That were one of our first projects because they are so popular, and you have a possibility to show them in television, to show them on the internet and on DVD, and we know that the people love it and will buy it and want to watch this movie. So that was a high priority for us to make these films. And yeah, we have different aspects, what films we are doing. There are commercial aspects, there are preservation aspects, and also aspects if we want to make a retrospective and we need this movie or that movie. And so there are different reasons why a movie is ready for a digitization. And yeah, there is a state program here in Germany by the government where we can get finance for it, but 20% of the money for each digitization we have to pay by ourselves. So it's a very expensive for us to digitize these movies, and we also need the partners for it, companies which have the scanners and the expertise. So it's very difficult to deal with the resources we have. And so we can just make a few films every year because of finance aspect and capacity. So yeah, but we are going on and on and on, and our aim is to have so much films in digitized as we can.
Perfect. I wonder what, if you could, as perhaps one of our closing questions, what kind of research do you do, if I may ask? And I'm interested also if you share with us your own work. I'm grateful you took the time to prepare this in particular about the Indianerfilme, but if you tell us a little bit about your own research and also about your facilities. I mean, if someone was to come to DEFA Stiftung in Berlin, what does it look like? What kind of what could they engage, and what interesting kind of aspects of work and presentation do you do?
Yeah, we're not doing all the research by ourselves. There are universities in Germany who do some research in different fields, and maybe they have an idea, and they contact us, and as a result, we will make a book publication or something like this. In this year, the genre films were very important for us. There is a new book, Publikums Piraten. That's Gojko Mitić on the cover, and so the different genres of the DEFA film stock became important for us. Science fiction movies, and also directors who made mostly genre films, and so we had this publication and also made a small conference about it, so get in touch with other people who are interested about that topic and speak about it. And next year we have also some new books we will publish. For example, about let me think about it. There is a small group of people in Eastern Germany. The Sorbs is maybe the correct English word, and in the DEFA there was a small group of people of the Sorbs. They are living in the Lausitz. It's in Brandenburg near Berlin, and they made movies in their own language and are telling something about their history and their culture, which is very specific, but it's a very interesting topic that there were these production group at the DEFA and this special kind of movies, and it's mostly forgotten now that there exists this production group and there exist these movies. And yeah, we want to show that this is very interesting, and we want to digitize movies which are dealing with this topic, and yeah, we will publish a book about it.
Wonderful. I mean, I really look forward to it, because this sounds like you're finding ever more, this material and this heritage that you're talking about, that's so multifaceted and so many things to discover. So I'm really grateful that you said that, and also for sharing this book and the new one you will do. So I really look forward to that, also to see the kind of work they did, because that's something really, that I don't think it's quite easily accessible. I'm wondering also, perhaps as a final question, and this is more of what you think, and then perhaps we can conclude, is what was your interest, because you seem in East German cinema, and how did you come to this? Perhaps what are some of your, perhaps even most beloved films, and why was this so fascinating for you?
Yeah, the GDR was the country where my parents lived, and most of the time of their lives at this point, their youth, and also my grandparents. And I wanted to learn more about this country. And of course you can read books, and you have this stuff in school, but you can see this country in the movies. You can see the people, their clothes, the flats, what kind of stuff they did at work, and this is you can just see it in the films. It's history, even in the future films, you can learn something about history, you know, how life worked in the GDR, and that's very interesting for me, and I love to learn it. My favorite films, of course, I watched some fairy tales and also the Western movies when I was a child. Nowadays, I love the movies which are playing in the GDR. For example, there is some Coming Out is a very popular film about a young teacher who realizes that he is gay, and he has problems in school because he is gay. It's not allowed to be a gay teacher, and his difficulties with this process of learning who he is in this country is very interesting, and it has also the interesting part that it premiered at the same day when the Berlin Wall crashed down. So not only the film had Coming Out, also the country in this case. So this is a story I like very much. And also the documentaries of the documentary studio are very interesting. There are portraits about women's working women's in a clothing fabric, and you can show their life, you can see their life from the 1970s to the 1990s, what changed, what kind of problems they have, what are the things they are interested in. And yeah, I love this kind of movies because it's so interesting, and it shows you a country that doesn't exist anymore.